Hi, I'm Orla, and today I'm going to be talking about what I'm reading this summer. First of all is this book, which is The Unwomanly Face of War by, let me just double check that I'm not saying this wrong, Svetlana Alexievich, which is definitely pronounced a lot different to how I said it. I'm not sure if she's Russian or Ukrainian. I think she's Russian, but I'm not entirely sure. Basically, this book is interviews from women who fought for the Soviet Union during World War II. And I've actually really been enjoying it. I wasn't sure how it would be reading interviews from so many people, but I've really enjoyed the different perspectives. It's also got a lot about the way the media tried to censor these women's interviews or just their impact during the war in general. So the environment that these interviews gave them really felt like she was trying to give them a platform to speak their truth, I guess. But it shows a very horrific side to war, but also what I found interesting was how different the female perspective is on war compared to men, which you probably think that war is war, which is to a certain extent, but the way that they describe certain things and they mention things that men obviously wouldn't have to deal with, that being in a war setting really makes you realize that it is a very different experience. Like, for example, a lot of the kit they were issued obviously didn't fit them. They weren't provided adequate sanitary products. Also, a lot of it was the way other soldiers perceived them or the public perceived them. But yeah, it's a very interesting side of war that I don't think a lot of us often think about. And there's a little quote here which I want to read because I quite like it. And it's, "Women's war has its own colours, its own smells, its own lighting, and its own range of feelings, its own words." And I don't know, there's just something about that while I've been reading the book. It's just made that quote more impactful. The other thing I've been reading is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Now, I love Agatha Christie. She is one of my favourite crime authors, and obviously very popular. The only thing is I don't really like this book so far. I've not read that much of it, to be honest, if you can see. So I'm really hoping that it gets better. I think the problem is it shows every single perspective in the novel. And there's about, I think, 10 perspectives of all these characters, which I have been enjoying, but it's sort of a lot when it comes to reading it. I feel like the pacing's a lot slower than it usually is in her novels due to all these perspectives, which I don't mind too much, obviously, but trying to get back into this novel seems to be my biggest problem. Like, when I'm reading it, I do enjoy it, but it's such a struggle to pick up. I'm gonna like it once it starts to get a bit more interesting. It's just right now I feel like I've not read a lot, but I've read quite a few chapters and not much has happened, which it definitely depends on your preference with books, but with me, I kind of need more of a hook to keep me going. But obviously it's an Agatha Christie novel, so I know there's going to be some murder in it and mystery, so hopefully that'll keep me going. Now, I have the mystery edition, so at the back I don't know if you can see, it's a little envelope that tells me who the murderer is. So I'm supposed to work this out on my own instead of the usual Agatha Christie novels where she explains who it is and how they capture them. So that is very interesting. My sister got me this, and this is a bookmark she made for me a few years ago. But I've not been enjoying it, but I hold out for hope because I love Agatha Christie so much. I think it's just a slow start, which is why I'm struggling with it. But once I read more, I think I'm really going to start enjoying it. The next book is more of a textbook. It is Polish for Dummies, and I've not actually started reading it. I bought it not that long ago, and yeah, it's a textbook for learning Polish. I have been learning Polish for a few years now, but at the start I wasn't really learning it properly, I'm not gonna lie. I knew a few words. I went on Duolingo and that was sort of it. But recently this year I've really been getting into learning Polish. I did some Polish lessons and I'm planning on doing more, I think online this time. I had ones in person, but as far as I'm aware they only do a beginner's class. They don't do anything further than that. So I'm sort of looking for online classes at the moment. But while I'm learning, I want to continue to grow my vocabulary and just keep up with things. My Polish has definitely been improving recently, so I'm very happy about that. But I definitely need to do a lot more work, especially when it comes to pronunciation. But what I liked about this is there's not that many textbooks on Polish, I'm not gonna lie. At least the ones I know. I used a different one in my classes, but I wanted to pick something different just so I've got two sort of references. But what I liked about this one is when I was skimming through it, there's a lot of helpful vocabulary for sort of everyday life. There's things like shopping for food and navigating food delivery apps, planning trips, making plans with a travel agent, and it's somewhere in here, but I saw one about visas in citizenship. I'm pretty sure that there was citizenship, but there was definitely stuff about visas and moving to Poland, which would also be very helpful. My problem with Polish is I learn a lot, but I seem to learn stuff that's not very helpful. Like, I know some basic conversation and I know a lot about food, which is helpful, but a lot of the more essential conversations I need to have, I'm not really able to have. My vocabulary is not that great. So I'm hoping that with this book, I will be able to learn just a lot more of the essential stuff, especially formal conversation. I'm not really great at that at the moment. But yeah, the last thing that I'm reading is The Safe Keep. Now, I haven't actually started reading it yet either. This one I bought literally today. But it's a psychological thriller from what I've read. Set 15 years after the Second World War in the Netherlands. I'm not entirely sure what the full plot is because I didn't want to get any spoilers, but it's about this woman who has a very strict and set routine. And then her brother's girlfriend arrives to stay for the summer unexpectedly, by the sounds of things, and it causes a lot of tension and chaos. And honestly, I'm really excited to read this. I do love anything psychological or mystery, especially thrillers. I'm not sure how much of a thriller, sort of psychological fiction this novel is, but either way, I'll be excited. I honestly love to read anything. I'm not picky as long as the plot's really good. And this also seems to be the author's debut novel, which is pretty cool. The name of the author is, I'm gonna pronounce this terribly, Yael van der Wouden, I think. I don't know if it'll be inverted, but that's her name there. And yeah, I'm really excited to read this. Well, that's everything I'm going to be reading this summer. hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.